My work explores how technology, and in particular digital tools and artificial intelligence, are impacting multilingual communication and language transfer processes. These innovations are enabling new interaction patterns and profoundly reshaping the industry of language services. And since such changes deeply affect communication and language models overall, as we said, they need to be addressed not only from the perspective of information technology or by private companies, but also in the field of translation and interpreting studies and in the so-called digital humanities, in a broader debate and collaboration among scholars and practitioners. And then as a translators trainer myself, I also see how this will impact educational programs for the training of future specialized language professionals. Given the latest advancements in automatic speech recognition and spoken translation systems, which are thoroughly been discussed here today, in my study and research activities, special focus is devoted to some of their applications in interpreting and how that may push the boundaries of new augmented real-world use cases. Therefore, my presentation stems from my experience as a practitioner, as a translator and conference interpreter, and also from my collaborations with several research groups and projects on next generation language technologies for translators and interpreters. And therefore, I'm going to offer an overview of the current landscape and envisage some potential paths for future scenarios. Today, computers and devices process and analyze language for several purposes by applying the models of computational linguistics and natural language processing. However, research in the field is seldom public or shared, since it often deals with trade secrets of the companies that hold such technology and know-how. And moreover, publications on the topic are often confined to computer science, despite language technologies entailing a multidisciplinary approach by their very nature. In written translation, resources such as translation memories and term bases are already largely used and leveraged by translators, not only to improve their speed and accuracy, their speed and productivity, but also consistency and accuracy. And over the years, the use of CAT tools has also gradually incorporated automated and machine translation engines, which not only aid human translators in their task, but are also increasingly offered as a standalone solution. Conversely, in the area of spoken translation or interpreting, the adoption and integration of technology-based systems in the workflows and practice of interpreters has been slower and less far-reaching so far. The technological shift in the profession is still underway, although developments and interest in interpreting technologies are considerably growing. Indeed, only recently, following a steadily growing production of multimedia content, machine interpreting or automatic spoken translation or speech translation have gained momentum both in academic and commercial environments, especially as we heard in the perspective of transitioning from current cascade to more promising end-to-end models, as we heard earlier from Juan Pino, and also Google just released their second version of their Translatotron. And but observation, analysis, and evaluation of language technologies are largely conducted in the framework of information technology and computer science. However, multilingual activities such as translation and interpreting are first and foremost communication events. Hence the need to promote a different approach and embrace a novel vision to create a wider theoretical and attitudinal framework. Hesitancy or even reluctance towards technology among a segment of language practitioners seems to be due to a lack of trust in the tools, considering them as a source of distraction and additional cognitive load or scarcely effective, but also partly as a result of an approach to artificial intelligence as opposed to human intelligence or to humans outright. And beyond the possible semantic reasons behind that, because the word artificial may be associated with something unnatural, insincere, or fraudulent, the whole narration around AI should be reconsidered. Some of the most evident benefits brought to language services by this technological revolution suggest that the main advantages derive from automation. Automated intelligence and intelligent automation, or smart automation, as I will explain in a minute, are undoubtedly a winning facet since they reduce and optimize repetitive and unproductive steps of processes. And by accomplishing such delegated tasks, AI can enhance human activity without replacing humans, but supporting and augmenting the possibilities and outreach of human performance. And in this respect, an additional facet of AI would be that of augmented intelligence. And indeed, in translation and interpreting professional communities are already starting to refer to technology-supported processes as augmented translation and interpreting. And the next shift could be from computer-assisted to computer-augmented language services, involving adaptive and assistive NLP application, as illustrated also by Dr. Arl Lommel from CSA Research in the opening keynote session of this summit. And besides the alternatives to the term artificial in AI, the scientific community is also starting to suggest a different meaning for the second term, acknowledging that in modern digital tools, intelligence does not coincide with human-like cleverness, but rather with smartness and agency, that is the ability to successfully solve problems or complete specific tasks. Now, early on in their history, it was clear that computers were going to enable and facilitate communication among humans rather than directly interact with them. Language has always been the distinctive feature characterizing humanity, and for decades, machines have subsequently been a medium for human interaction. However, with the recent developments of neural networks and deep learning algorithms, information and communication technologies are also starting to act not only as pure intermediaries, but to a certain extent also as autonomous and original language and content generators. And the most popular example of that is probably OpenAI's language model GPT-3. And presumably, technology, not only language technology, will increasingly integrate with human senses, ultimately changing everyday communication paradigms and human interaction with reality. And a great read on the topic, I suggest, is the recent Litme Forecast report on language in the human-machine era. And despite being still distant from complete satisfactory performance, generative language models are a reality with real-world applications in a few niche industries already. This area is still in its infancy, but its groundbreaking role and its societal impact cannot be ignored. Now, as I was saying, the study as an assessment of language technologies in computer science is commonly product-oriented and primarily takes into consideration parameters as output quality, usability, and technical performance, whereas translation and interpreting studies generally also consider criteria including functional equivalence, faithfulness, intelligibility, and the facilitation of communicative interaction. And as also detailed by Claudio Fantinuoli and Bianca Prandi, the results of early testing in spoken translation show a better performance by humans in terms of intelligibility and a more accurate performance by machines in terms of informativeness. And considering that automated speech translation systems do not provide completely satisfactory outcomes by themselves yet, the current focus, in my opinion, should be on how digital system can integrate human work by supporting and enhancing human performed activities. And in this direction, innovation department of companies, academic research projects, and even institutions and international organizations have begun to explore the usability of newer generation and AI-empowered tools. And the time has also come for training programs, both university degrees for aspiring linguists, as well as vocational training and continuing professional development, to systematically integrate all of this in the classroom. And to achieve this outcome, a holistic and integrated approach is required, with the compelling necessity to design language curricula where technology is not a mere supplement segregated to specific courses, but rather an element underlying the very structure of programs. And most importantly, the labor market is also increasingly requiring the new generations of language professionals to be experts who can combine their domain expertise and knowledge with digital and IT skills, as stressed by Jane Mkova in the second keynote address of the summit, and also as the previous presentation hinted at. A few institutions across the world have already started doing so, and language and translation interpreting programs are to include language programming modules, and most linguists need to add coding to their arsenal, because language services and language technologies will only be increasingly intertwined. In my opinion, translators and interpreters will probably be no longer allowed to disregard NLP and computational linguistics, and language engineers as well will inevitably work closer to language service providers. Now, a widespread concern among human language professionals is to be eventually replaced by machines in their job. And indeed, a substantial share of the lower end translation demand is already met by machine translation, with translators intervening in human or expert in the loop models by fine-tuning the work of engines or addressing highly specialized niches. And the same could happen with speech translation, with some portions of the labor space being taken over by automated spoken translation when communication, for instance, is particularly linear or unstratified. And similarly to what is already happening with written translation, humans would therefore be progressively covering high-end needs where more than a plain linguistic equivalence is needed. And as a consequence, with greater availability of good quality automated translation, expectation towards human language professionals are going to be even higher. And this will be an additional challenge for practitioners and training institutions alike, being demanded a broader yet solid preparation, as well as narrowing subject matter expertise. And heading towards that direction, language professionals will be expected to offer trustworthiness rather than simple language support. And however, as previously mentioned, a remarkable share of translators and even more interpreters are still not familiar with IT resources already at their fingertips. And therefore, another gap in skills and in mindset needs to be bridged. Institutions should notably be the space where those innovations are primarily experimented, but even envisaged or designed. And an open, yeah.
2 minutes, 1
okay.
minute, 2 minutes.
Okay. And as I was saying, text-based language technologies already significantly impacted human communication and human-machine interaction patterns. And the same could happen with fast-paced improvements in voice-based language technologies, whose consideration is turning from accessibility to full productivity resources. So just like a language varies depending on context, for instance, with baby talk or foreigner talk, the same may presumably happen when communicating to computers by resorting to specific computer or machine talk. And since these technologies also amplify the diamesic variations of language, speech addressed to machines will reasonably be different from spontaneous verbal expression. And that will only be consolidated over time by several factors, such as society becoming accustomed to interacting with machines through voice, and an increasingly blurred dividing line between spoken and written language, and also a machine-induced alignment to common cognitive structures to represent linguistic knowledge as theorized by Noam Chomsky. And furthermore, text-based NLP applications like pre-filled responses or suggested writing show how much human communication really relies upon automatic mechanisms and how many interactions can truly be managed with little intelligence or language understanding. And it is probable that in real-world environments since real-world environments are becoming increasingly AI-friendly, it is likely that if machine talk still looks distant from widespread real-world use, computer-assisted interpreting talk could be more reasonably an emerging trend, as interpreters may adjust their techniques to the performance and output of these tools. And research in common sense AI is also trying to narrow the gap. I will move to the conclusions. And therefore, I think that we should not conceive technology as a threat aiming at replacing humans, but as a resource providing support to help us excel and achieve the best cooperation between human abilities and computational efficiency. And this objective can be attained by considering emerging communication paradigms, and above all, by educating practitioners for a critical, accountable, and transparent use of these language technologies. Thank you. And if we have a few minutes left, I'm open to taking any questions.